What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Turn the Jets podcast. I'm your host, Will Parkinson, at WillPod11 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. All 32 Pod, TOJ Talks. Wednesday following the draft. No better person to have on than Mike Renner himself. Me and Mike had talked in February, and we talked to Armand Membu. We talked to Mason Taylor, and guess what? They're now Jets. Mike, how you doing off a busy draft weekend?
I'm doing great. Finally caught up on some sleep, so we're golden here.
Yeah, I still have not. I was at a bachelor party for 4 days amidst the draft. So doing double time, live tweeting at a pool party might be my finest accomplishment I've ever done. Mike, obviously, I want to hop right into it. Jets, obviously, we'll get into some of the day 2 and day 3 guys. I want to just start pick 7. Obviously, there was a lot of debate. Was it Tyler Warren? Could the Jets go big with a Colston Loveland swing? Or do they stick offensive line? The way the board broke, they kind of had the pick of a couple of the guys they're, said to have interest in Banks and Membu. Warren's there, Loveland's there. They kind of had everything set up for him. Do you like the direction they end up going with Armand Membu and just saying, let's just be awesome up front and kind of go from there?
I do. I had him close enough on my board to OT1 that it was really like if you need a right tackle, he was the guy. I would have taken him. And obviously the Jets, that's the need. And I had him a lot higher than Tyler Warren. So truly, like if I was the Jets and I was in that situation, it was either him or T-Mac. And truthfully, you could find wide receivers later. Now they didn't really find a wide receiver later, but you can't find Armand Membu later. So I endorse the direction of the pick for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there was some kind of conversation. I felt this way going in was if you took a Warren or Loveland at 7, could you find a tackle at 42? Because I didn't think Mason Taylor and the rest of those tight ends were going to be there. Mason Taylor ends up being there. And again, I know you're a lot lower on him than I am, but there was definitely teams that I asked and they were like, he's going to go in the top 30. And we talked about it literally going up into the draft where it's like, the Eagles going to take him at 32 and he's going to be a first round pick. I know you don't like him quite as much. I guess kind of walk me through why and if you thought it was a reach there for the Jets to take him.
Yeah, so
Jets fans are going to yell at you for this.
I'm reminded I feel like the Moneyball, that Moneyball clip was like everywhere this draft season where it's like, if he's, why doesn't he's a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good? To me, like the Mason Taylor thing is like, if he's a good athlete, why doesn't he do the things good athletes? He doesn't break tackles after the catch. He's not like dynamic post catch. His average yards per catch, he doesn't create big plays in the passing game or didn't in his career at LSU. And as a route runner, I just think he's fine. Like he kind of just like good in a lot of different manners. To me, he reminds me a lot of Luke Schoonmaker coming out. And I know it's not like a great comp, but like Schoonmaker ended up being a second round pick too. Where it's just like, yeah, I think he's like fine in a lot of different ways, but I never saw a guy who was an elite talent that's just because tight end, just look at the contracts of tight end. There's only like a few guys that get paid, right? There's only a few needle movers, then everyone else is kind of in the slop. And I just didn't see him being one of the needle movers. So I guess that's a roundabout way of just saying, like, I think he's fine, but fine doesn't get paid and doesn't, necessarily move the needle for a lot of offense. And then finally, like, he's not a great blocker yet. Obviously, he's one of the youngest tight ends in the entire class. So he has room to develop, and like his bloodlines are probably the best ever, in NFL history. Yeah. So there is room for development, but I didn't quite see it on tape yet.
Would you have taken, like, what would you have done there if you were sitting at 42 with the way the board was? Would you have just gone receiver there? Would you have potentially gone like a Terrence Ferguson or Elijah Arroyo? Like how would you have approached it maybe potentially different than the Jets did?
So it's weird because obviously the Jets are going to run the football, right? If you draft Terrence Ferguson, Elijah Arroyo, they're not going to do a damn thing. Like I said, Taylor's not like a great run blocker, but he's a better run blocker than those guys. Yeah. Gosh, with the way the board was out at that point, kind of all the wide receivers that I was considering drafting at that range, Jaden Higgins, Luther Burden, gone. So I'm not sure where I would have gone. I'd probably have to look back at my board a little bit more. Depends on your eval of Will Johnson's health. That's probably where I would have looked at. But again, if you just gave him a no-go grade, then you're not looking there at all. So hard to say. If I'm going tight end position, gosh, yeah, I probably would have preferred Ferguson just because the receiving upside. But again, you may have had Ferguson off their board entirely just because he's not a blocker.
Yeah, no, I think what type of offense they want to run, it just kind of silos you into like I don't know if they would ever take Colson Loveland because I don't know if he really does anything. Like they want that slot position open to kind of move Garrett around,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're just going to draft a big slot, then that's fine. It's just your offense has to be. I'm not sure that's where Justin Fields is like eating in the passing game. Um, pick 73. I think was my favorite pick of the draft. I'm pretty positive we talked about Azaria Thomas as a guy who post Senior Bowl. It was like, hey, he's probably a second rounder, but he was really damn good on tape. Character is like A plus plus, and he had such a good week at the Senior Bowl. I felt like where it's like, hey, does he slide in the background one where there's a couple of teams where it's like corner could be a pick. There's a cluster of corners that could all go there. He doesn't run great, but everything else checks the boxes. What do you think of that pick? And I feel like that was a steal for them personally at 73. I think that's their best value pick they got.
I agree, and just like he couldn't have gone to a better place for him. He feels like an Aaron Glenn corner through and through. Like he's a press guy, big wingspan, real fluid. Just doesn't have speed, but like when you, and so that's why you worry about him transitioning to off because he really didn't play much off at Florida State, and off just takes a little more athletic traits, right? To match from off, you better move. You better be able to move. But on, you could just keep your hands on guys the entire route, and it's like that's fine. So I think he goes to a great spot where he gets a chance to do just that. And so a guy whose tape says better than pick 73, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I just think him and Sauce on the outside, just two really, really long corners, guys that want to press you, get hands on you. And then you got, they had Malachi Moore in round 4. The Thomas and Moore picks to me were just like attitude picks with the Jets too. It was like we've been a really soft team, frankly, the last couple of years, especially last year. It was like the Jets got kind of punked a lot at certain points, and I feel like they're always kind of the punching bag in a lot of ways. And Malachi Moore is like the opposite of that. I don't know how good he's going to be in the NFL. I think he could be a starter. I don't know like what level of starter you want to go to, but that dude is extremely smart and talks an incredible amount of shit. And like I know that stuff doesn't normally matter, but on day 3, I kind of feel like that's where you have to go if you're going to go those either an older prospect like that, or you go for the special teams guys. Did you like Malachi Moore? Because I mean he's been in our lives for like at least 4 or 5 years, right? Like he was a freshman over Brian Branch at the time.
Yeah, no, I've never been a Mass fan just because of the traits. Like
Yeah,
I think he's very limited, but at that point in the draft, you at least have like a special teamer, right? Especially, and like a lot of people treat day 3 picks as that. So, but you can find safeties there. Evan Williams last year's guy comes to mind where it's like not a great athlete, but like all of a sudden he gets in a role where he can make an impact. So that could be a Malachi Moore.
I'm gonna hop to the 3 picks that generally fans all hated. I want to start with the 2 Miami guys, and then I want to finish with Aaron Smith because that seems like the ultimate talking point. Tyler Barron's an interesting one. I don't think he's like not talented. Like there's certainly talent there. I think some people liked him more than others. It depends on how much you value. There's a lot of different stuff with him. There's also the 4 schools in 2 years, and as much as whatever you can see he's defending his teammate, you get kicked off a program. You get kicked off a program. Is he like at that point in the draft? I know it's the 5th round, but they did give up. They did like trade up for him, so they obviously like him to some extent. What do you think? Like the idea of drafting 2 guys on like a horrific defense in Miami, A, and then B, is Barron just like a shithead, or is like there's something there to be had? Because I feel like he's the one guy where character was a little iffy. The rest of these guys are all like high character guys.
Yeah, Barron, I think he's talented, man. I mean, his combine numbers were good. You watch his tape, and he's got good bend for a 6'5" edge and a pretty good get off. Like, I just think he's, not super exciting. Like, for be a 5th year to have tape the way he does, it's just okay. And so, but it's a 5th rounder, right? Like, you're just hoping that guy can see a football field. And I think if you watch Tyler Barron with how much he's played football, he can see a football field if he's forced into it at the NFL level. He's got the size, he's got the traits. Like it's just you're probably not getting any home runs at that point in the draft. Definitely not on the edge, right? There's been so few in NFL history that have been like day 3 picks to the edge, then home runs. NFL's good at identifying those guys. But if you just want depth, I think he's pretty darn good at depth at that point in the draft. Better than a lot of guys who I saw go into that range.
Yeah. So the one we'll talk about Arian Smith now because I think I would. Where I'm at with it is if he got picked in the 6th round, and the Jets were like, "Hey, dude, we just want somebody that's going to be running the low 4.2s, whatever." He ran the 4.3s, but like he's obviously an insane athlete in terms of like just physical. Like most people just aren't that fast. It would be like, "Hey, we're just going to use him as a special teamer. I'll run 15 go balls a game and clear out the middle of the field, and we'll throw 1 or 2 of them and hope he catches it." It's the fact that they took him at 110, and you're sitting there going, "We just signed a corner that's going to make $12 million a year." So I love the Azaria Thomas pick, but it is a bit confusing to take, a corner there. I think they just probably didn't think he was going to be there. Kyle Williams is gone. And then to take Arian Smith and just be like, "Hey, he's our guy, so we're taking him no matter what the fucking pick is." I just struggle with like the value on everyone's board is like he's a guy in the 250s that's like barely draftable, and they took him in the top 110 pick. Is that kind of where you land with that?
Well, it's also because you needed like a real wide receiver. Like you need, and there were real wide receivers there, right? And I thought this class was very good in terms of depth for speed wide receivers and guys who are fast who could like also do more than be just fast. Whereas Arian Smith can really only be just fast, right? You're just drafting him just so he just like clears out, just like runs overs, things like that. And the problem is like even if he's open and runs over, sometimes he doesn't even catch him. But I thought like Jalen Lane, who went after Keandre Lambert-Smith, were much better in the speed wide receiver mold in terms of actually, if you had to play them on, running more of a complete route tree would be much better. And then freaking Jalen Royals was there, who's an actual wide receiver. And I'm not saying he's, an elite talent. He obviously falls to 4th round for a reason. And like, he didn't have the best Senior Bowl himself, but he could at least be a passable number 3 in an offense. And you probably won't bat an eye and you probably won't be upset about it. But you went with a guy who really just has to play one certain role. And even in that role, I question how good he is.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the upside there is like, is he MVS? Like, that's, I guess, what you're hoping. It's like, hey, like, hopefully he just like can focus for 4 quarters in a row. Where I don't know. I mean, I get the idea of it. I just don't like the idea of where they took him. Like, you could have doubled up on a receiver and taken him later. There's no way someone else was taking Arian Smith at 110. There's just, I don't buy that.
I agree.
Is there kind of like encapsulating the Jets draft, right? They had some nice guys in, the UEFA mark. I feel like Donovan Edwards is the big name. Very confusing player because like 2022 Donovan Edwards and Michigan 2023 even to some extent, like that dude was really good. Like I know it's a joke, but like he wasn't on the cover of NCAA for like because he was like a bad player. But you also don't go undrafted as a guy who's like a national championship winning running back that was a home run hitter if there isn't some other stuff. Do you think it's just the knee? Is it like what happened there with Donovan Edwards? I mean, I don't see even the Senior Bowl too. It was like there was no hype about him. And I'm like, that's kind of weird.
I truthfully was never a big fan of his tape, so I'm maybe the wrong guy to ask in that regard.
Yeah.
I just saw like a linear back, not a guy who can create on his own. And that's just, linear speed backs throughout NFL history. They get invited to the combine, they run 4.3s or they test well, but then it's just like when you watch them actually have to do the things a running back has to do to produce, it's just going to look, you're going to have like these oddities. It's going to look clunky at times. And that to me was Donovan Edwards. So I just never saw him being a clean fit at the NFL level. What
would you kind of grade I hate draft grades because like it's obviously it's like Mason Taylor could end up sucking and you're going to be, you could be right. Mason Taylor could be amazing all of a sudden and be great. You know what I mean? Like it's just,
yeah,
it's the Jets got an A+ draft for 2021 and 2 of those guys are still here. Right. So like it is what it is. I feel like they probably settle somewhere in the B range. You can maybe go above if you love Mason Taylor. If you don't like Mason Taylor and Zaire Thomas as much, maybe it's lower. Where do you kind of end up here? I feel like the Membu pick and Thomas are the 2 ones that you were like, I get it. Those are good picks. Taylor and Moore and some of the other ones, you're just like, yeah.
I'd probably go either B+, A-. Because round 1, round 3, I think knocked out the park. I probably would not have gone elsewhere on my board, like truthfully. So those, that's usually your draft. If the top 100 picks, if you can hit 2 a year, you're golden. So that's, I guess, probably like an A- draft then. Like that's like you do that consistently, you're good. And I'm not to say that. And again, Mason Taylor, I think is a good player. I don't think he's going to be a bust. But like pick 43, right? I don't think he's going to be a guy that we're talking about 3 years from now on a different team or just buried on the depth chart. He'll probably be your starter. It's just how good is he going to be as a starter? Is he going to be, I kind of see him in the fair or not, like Cole Kmet-ish sort of range. That's how I felt about Cole Kmet coming out when he got drafted. That's how I still feel about Cole Kmet. I couldn't believe he got that contract, but it was like when he played with Justin Fields, actually, Cole Kmet kind of did some things. And so maybe that's Mason Taylor's sort of career path, is just to be reliable enough over the middle of the football field for the quarterback who helps you quarterback the future.
I want to hit on a couple more general things, obviously coming out of the draft. I felt like the two, I just want to start with the Falcons quickly. I could not have been happier they got Jalen Walker. Amazing, such a prototypical Raheem Morris, Jeff Ulbrich guy. He's going to be a stud. I'm going to bet him to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Trading a first rounder and a second rounder for James Pierce, what are you doing? I know I'm probably lower on him than most because they think the character stuff is real. I don't think that's just contrived stuff for people to drive him down. Every single person I asked around the NFL draft community was people with teams, people that are covering are I don't know what's going on there. But I guess at the same time, they probably would tell you, hey, we got 2 of the top 4 edge rushers in the class. Is that where do you land with them? Because that's one of the big trips, and the Rams getting a future first rounder when they might have Stafford retire is huge.
I mean, my take at the time, and I think it's even after seeing the rest of their draft feel stronger about it, is Terry Fontenot was trying to save his job, man. It is what it is. When you're
probably is too. Let's be honest. If they don't make the playoffs this year, he might get fired also.
Yeah. So a fifth-year GM who's never had a winning record. 4 years as GM, never had a winning record. If they don't have a winning record next year, he's gone. Flat out, he just would be gone. Yeah. So that's why, lame duck GMs, I always warn about, they make short-term decisions. And the draft usually should be a long-term decision. Now, again, if you had a sky-high grade on James Pierce, and the players they got back, there are people who told me James Pierce is the top 10 talent in this class. There are people who had Xavier Watson, the top 50 guy in this class. So what they ended up getting back from that trade was a couple guys who were, quote unquote,
yeah, I love Billy Bowman and Xavier Watson, 2 of my favorite safeties in the class. Both guys I think are in the starting NFL. That was cool. So was Walker. The Pierce one was weird.
It's just, and I agree. I didn't think Pierce had top 10 tape even without the off-field issues. And then obviously factoring that in, I would be terrified to. And the thing is about those two guys, Walker, I think, can make an impact right away, but I don't know if Pierce is NFL ready. I don't know if he's more Dallas Turner than he is Jared Verse, and Dallas Turner didn't do much for the Vikings last year. So you might not get your ROI on that until year 3 or something from him.
I want to ask you about one other trade up and then just one other general question. You love the Travis Hunter, based on what you were tweeting. I didn't even text you about this, the Travis Hunter trade up. And I do get it. And I'm not saying I don't think it was smart in a lot of ways. I think I just worry of what are you going to – you better have a plan for him, because otherwise that's where I start to worry, is where you're just getting him to sell jerseys and be hey, we have Travis Hunter. Because if that's the case, then it's a mistake. If it's for a football reason of hey, we think he can legitimately be a number 1 receiver or complement Brian Thomas really well and or whatever, we're going to play him at corner. We're not – I don't know the answers to that. That's where I have my little bit of a worry with it, is not that Cleveland would have done anything different. I don't know. I just feel they did give up a lot. And as much as Gladstone's ridiculous Game of Thrones, level, wordsmith stuff there, save the Mike McDaniel GM talk. I get the talent. I'm worried of are they going to really use him the right way? Otherwise it's not worth it.
I was going to say, you didn't buy that he's going to make everyone in that locker room a better person and that they're going to ascend to heaven and sing Kumbaya at the end of games? You don't think so?
Oh man,
no, I can't.
That's one of the crazier paragraph. I actually was watching that. I was just dude, please stop. I'm begging you to stop.
I shouldn't hate, because honestly, it's electric content. And I wish if we had more GMs doing shit like that, it'd be more fun, right? If we had more GMs willing to go out and say crazy ass shit, this would make our jobs easier. But I like it because when you like just elite wide receiver duo plus you can call Trevor Lawrence whatever you want, but like plus a quarterback who's like exciting, right? He's capable of high end play.
Yeah.
It's just if you are a fan of a team, that's awesome. Like I don't care who you are when when Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback at the Green Bay Packers and they had that receiving core early on in his career. It was just every single game you're rolling in and you're like, it's like it is just more fun than when you have Trevor Lawrence throwing to Christian Kirk as his number one option. So from that perspective, like you just made this like really, you made the Jaguars more fun for your fan base. Like
Yeah.
and that's like part of your job as like an owner is to sell tickets, and like all of a sudden Jaguars like are going to sell more tickets. They're going to be more exciting. They're going to be leading sports centers. They're going to be talked about more. We're literally talking about them now. If they would have sat at 5 and drafted Mason Graham, we may not have discussed them. So you get all of that. And then I do think that when he said, I'm uniquely qualified to do not have first round picks, I don't think he's lying. Like he knows to play the draft game, to load up on these, third rounders. He got a couple third rounders in this draft, and I think they could be good players for them. And he's been very good at identifying, and like the Rams have been very good at identifying later on talent that can like smooth out and just play roles on rosters. And then when that's the case, when you don't have depth concerns, needle movers they do move the needle. A guy like Travis Hunter next to Brian Thomas. Like that's why they're called needle movers. Like that, they change how defenses have to play, and then it's almost difficult to put a price on them. So I like it. I liked it from the Jags perspective, and I loved it from the Browns perspective. I think that's the best way to put it. I didn't love it from the Jags perspective, but I liked it, and I loved it from the Browns perspective.
I'll one negative, and we'll finish with a positive because I want to just quickly focus on one other team. But the Browns draft, and like unfortunately we have to talk about this, but the Browns draft to me was really good if Andrew Berry's actually going to be able to keep his job, because next year if they want to trade it for a quarterback, which I think they're going to have to, they're going to have a war chest of picks. They'll have a ton of cap space. Hopefully Deshaun stuff, I'm sure they're going to bite the bullet here at some point, and maybe not. Maybe they'll just keep fucking paying him until they're blue in the face. But Mason Graham's a good player. Again, I think we talked about this last time you were on. Like, I didn't love Mason Graham as much as everybody else, but he was still a top 10 player in the class. Like, I have no issue with them drafting him at all. I actually think Dylan Gabriel is going to start for them. Like, everyone thinks I'm nuts. I just feel like he's perfect for Stefanski. Like, he's really accurate. He's going to know the playbook in 2 seconds. He's going to be like the classic, like older quarterback he's good right now. Like he just is. And I just can already see Kevin Stefanski be like, he's going to be Case Keenum for me. And he's going to run my offense the way I want it to be run. And he's not going to take bad sacks. He's not going to throw picks.
Yep.
I feel like the Shedeur thing was like, all right, like let's just bite the bullet here at this point, because no one like ownership's. And are you surprised at all Shedeur fell the way he did? Because I think this is just my opinion, and I don't know if people agree with it. Generally, quarterbacks go in the top 60 picks if they're worth something, and then they just don't go for like the next 100 picks because teams start going, we're going to address needs. No one else is taking a quarterback that needs one. And that's what happened. I feel like largely it's not a lot of these other things. Are you surprised Shedeur fell as far as he did? Because once they got past the second or third round, I was like, all right, this is going to go on for a while now.
Not really. I mean, we literally just saw it 2022, right? When Sam Howell went the exact same pick. He went 144. Like they won the same pick as Shedeur. And not to say Sam Howell was like a first rounder, but I actually went back and checked. He was 46 on the consensus board. He was your second round quarterback, which like doesn't exist in the NFL team's eyes. So the quarterback position, it's also very much personality based, who you want in your building. Ian Book went in the 4th round because one GM fell in love with what he could be as like a backup quarterback. It's just different compared to
whiteboard stuff too. Can you learn my offense so well that you can jump in? I don't have to do a new game plan for you and all that different stuff.
And there's different traits teams look for in backup quarterbacks and starting quarterbacks. It's not just like who is the absolute best on a football field. It's how do they fit in the locker room? How are they going to support the starter? How are they going to help us game plan? Like it's just different. So, from all those perspectives, once he didn't go, I think like by midday 2, I was like, it's going to be a while. Just because a lot of people were just like, that's not what I want in my backup quarterback. I see him as a backup. That's not what I want.
Yeah. I want to finish here. I hated the Dolphins draft, and I love Jonah, but like I hated the Dolphins draft, and I love the Raiders draft. Like I could not feel polar opposites about two drafts more than those two teams. I felt like the Raiders took awesome people. They took like they took really good players. I
Yes.
think Jack's going to be a day one starter. I think Genty's obviously a top 3 or 4 player in this class at worst. Even day two and day three, like they hit home runs. I felt like, and then Miami, I felt like I like Kenneth Grant, but 13 feels really rich for me. I love Jonah, but like trading up a bunch of picks for him, and when you don't really know what he's going to play yet, is like a lot. I didn't. I feel like they both were operating on a totally different board.
Dude, yeah. 13 for Kenneth Grant. That one floored me during the draft. Now, there's been bigger reaches on my board than that, but that was the biggest, like historically, but that was the biggest reach this year of anyone in the first round and 46th. And even just like if I'm comparing him to other nose tackles in the class, I would have gone Tyreek Williams before him. There were other guys I would have got. I think he's kind of just okay. I didn't see the hype of, if you're drafting a guy that high, the only like nose tackles in recent memory to really justify it are Vita Vea, Dexter Lawrence. And you can't look at his
First
film,
team all pro guys.
right? Look at his film and look at those guys' film coming out of Clemson and Washington. And it is not even close. It's not even close.
When Dexter Lawrence goes 17, like he didn't even go as high as 19.
He went 19. Vita went
Wilkins was
13
like
or 14. So like those are the only guys, and like we've taken other guys, Jordan Davis, Mozzie went first round.
I guess Kenneth Grant going to be Chris Jenkins? Like I have a hard time seeing that level of like defensive player of the year conversation stuff.
And he's got a weird. He doesn't have big legs. Like he holds his weight oddly for a DT. I'll just say, in that I didn't see it. I just didn't. I saw a day two guy.
Raiders. Do we like where the Raiders are at? I feel like
Dude, so my 3-round mock for the Raiders, I hit 2 of their picks. I hit Ashton Genty and I hit Darren Porter.
There you go.
That was like the easiest team to mock. It was just so Raiders. I like what they did. And again, I couched it, I think, on draft night. I was like, dude, Pete Carroll's 73. Do you think he cares about Ashton Genty's second contract? Nope. He wants to win games in these next 4 years, and then he's probably out. Like, you think he's going to coach to 80? I doubt it.
No, I just felt like they were like, cool, our offense is going to be like Genty and then Gino just hitting Brock Bowers and Jack Bech for 250 targets a year. Bowers will get 1 set, whatever. We're going to be much better on defense, and like we're going to be way better coached. Our quarterback's way better. I don't know. The Raiders are weird. Like I don't think they're a Super Bowl team by any means. I'm not going to that level, but like if Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby are healthy and Gino has a full 17, like they probably should make the playoffs. And
it looks different.
Yeah. It just looks so much different overnight.
And they got the day 3 speed guy you wanted. You got Dante Thornton. That's like he's the real guy who has speed. That guy looks crazy.
Unfortunately, Jets. Hopefully, they didn't draft Tyquan Thornton, but there's a small or large % chance they may have. No, I mean, again, like I've said it a million times. The first 3 picks to me, at least from like where I am, I was like, cool, like good process. You took needs, but you took young guys that have traits and like good character guys. Like I loved it. Day 3 was a little rough, but to be honest with you, it's the first year of a regime. I'd like to see them with a full offseason before I totally crush them. But I still would have landed similar to you. I would have landed B plus range, give or take a little bit. Mike, obviously, I know you're going to get a little bit of a break here before you dive into, Arch Manning talk. Even though, guys, Arch Manning's not fucking coming out of college. He's getting $8 million a year from Red Bull. Like he's not going anywhere. Start learning Garrett Nussmeier, who's going to go number 1. I'm just calling it right now.
Yeah.
Mike, anything else before we hop off, or did I just tank this with the Arch Manning talk?
No, I do think though. I mean, the NIL is an interesting conversation, and one of the upshots of this year's draft that I don't think has been talked about much, but I think will be more is that we talked about a little bit with James Pierce, and there were other like character guys. And that's going to be a bigger thing for teams going forward because character will shine brighter at the collegiate level with NIL and with the money and with players being able to bounce between, 3 different Power 4 programs just going to the highest bidder year after year. And I think that as much as that may seem like a good decision for those guys in the moment, I think the NFL is not going to draft those guys highly. I think we're going to see a lot of guys who have good tape.
Nico's going to get punished, man. I'm telling you. Whether it's, I know he's 20 years old, and I get it, and 19 years old. Like, if you don't think that teams are going to drill Nico on, hey, buddy, what are you doing? Who's around you? What's your circle like? Who's giving you advice? Like, I just think
because it's revealing what is kind of like the biggest worry teams have when people get to the NFL is like how they act with money. It's revealing that at a younger age, and so you're going to see a lot of guys who have good tape. And people are like, how do they fall the second round? Well, it's because NFL teams just don't want to deal with those personalities in their building. And it's going to show a lot brighter in college. So I think it's an interesting thing that kind of just started to come to fruition this draft, but I think it's going to be a bigger story in the years to come.
Did Quinn Ewers get the worst pay decrease like of all time? This dude was making so much money at Texas, had a huge offer, and was like, I'll be a 7th rounder.
Yeah, he might have some regrets there. That's for sure. Gosh.
The Zach Wilson versus Quinn Ewers battle when Tua is hurt at some point this year will be generationally bad. Mike, I appreciate you. Appreciate hopping on as always. I'll be back on the feed Saturday. Make sure you guys check out Pod from yesterday, and we'll talk to you guys soon.